Okay, so what is the U.S. interest in all of these machinations? What is it that you and I mean, it's hard to imagine it's a national security issue, but I imagine it is a sort of there are corporate interests that we are trying to protect in some fashion.
It's less direct corporate interests. I think in the short term, the Biden administration wants to keep a lid on Haiti so they're not blamed for anything happening in Haiti during an election year. I think in the long term, it's what you already alluded to. It's that Haiti had the bad example of being a free country in a world run by slave-owning powers. If Today, it's basically the same type of thing. If Haitian voters were allowed to elect the people they wanted to, they would elect strong, progressive leaders who would go challenge the international order of which Haiti has the very short end, and of which we in America have the long end. I mean, to a large extent, the prosperity that you, and so many other Americans enjoy is to a large part based on our ability to exploit less powerful countries. And if we're not able to do that, it is going to affect our lifestyle. And when Haiti did elect a strong progressive president in 2000, he did challenge the United States. He went to the UN and gave speeches about the international economic order. He made a demand for reparations on France. And because of that, the US and France got together and they literally kidnapped him, because we can't accept that Haiti be a bad example of liberation. If Haiti's, and this is exactly what Thomas Jefferson said back in 1802, and it's still the case, there's a fear that if Haiti's allowed to be an example of sovereignty, then other countries are going to demand that too, and there'll be a domino effect, and pretty soon that will in fact challenge our preeminent place in the world.
All right. So we were talking, you're talking about Aristide, and, I think it's hard for people to really fully sort of make sense of the idea because it's not tangible on some level. I mean, it's, we've had examples in the past. I mean, I think, there's some talk about the minimum wage being raised there, and that would increase the cost of maybe some clothing that we get in this country, among other things. There may be also other products, but this story about France, when Aristide wanted basically compensation for what Haiti had paid, and I think I learned this from you, I think, or I can't quite remember, but when Haiti overthrew the slavery regime that France had imposed upon it, Haiti, because France obviously then had a navy, could do a blockade and basically starve Haiti out, Haiti agreed to pay back France the value of what France lost in the form of the slavery in terms of their own labor and like as commodities. And they were paying this fee off for something like 160, 70 years. I mean, up until, what was it? Almost like in the...
Until the 1940s.
Until the 1940s, 140 years, I guess, or so. And to be a country, period, at that time, never mind one that doesn't necessarily have a huge, is not employing slaves, essentially, to create wealth. And to have this ongoing bill, it's like, being dragged down by student debt well into your 60s. Honestly, like you can't build any wealth. You can't invest money into your own infrastructure. And it leaves you like in a permanent state of a sort of arrested development, if you will, in terms of your economy and in terms of your infrastructure. And so he was looking for this money back. And we're in an era where that is not... It's not impossible that maybe at least the international order would say, okay, well, that's probably the case. They shouldn't have had to have paid that. And so it really is just to keep in check any type of nationalism, particularly within the Southern Hemisphere.
Nationalism that will challenge the existing world order. I mean, the U.S., and you know this, especially in Latin America, the U.S. has tolerated nationalist regimes that are on the right that aren't going to challenge the existing order. It's nationalist regimes on the left that is the problem. And Haitians will remind you that, it wasn't just France in 1804. They got their independence from Napoleon, but the U.S. refused to recognize Haiti. Interesting, President John Adams, before independence, was helping the Haitians. He said, hey, they're like us. They want independence. And if they get independence, that can stretch throughout the hemisphere. Thomas Jefferson believed the same thing, except he believed it was a bad thing. So when Jefferson comes into power, he says, the Haitians are going to take over, or their example of liberty is going to take over. We need to stop it. And that's been our policy ever since. We've gone with Jefferson rather than Adams.
So the Kenyans have said we may not be interested in this deal. The U.S., like this morning, I guess, announced $100 million that they were going to pay Kenya to be the proxy military. And they were also
100 more. That's on top of several hundred million more that's already been promised.
And they're also going to provide another $33 million in aid to Haiti. If Kenya says no, what then?
They're going to keep looking. They'll keep raising the price, and either Kenya or someone else, I think, will eventually take over the mission, because eventually the price is going to be right. And that's the plan, I'm sure.
And that's stage one, and stage two is to install another leader in Haiti that is again essentially in the pocket of the U.S.
Yes, it's slightly more nuanced. So what happened last night in negotiations in Jamaica? The U.S. under the auspices of CARICOM brought together a lot of Haitians. It was called a negotiation, but it was more an audition. They brought some political parties that had a chance of winning fair elections, some that did not, and they said, look, you all have to get together and come up with a transitional government. And the first requirement for being part of this transitional government is to agree to this illegal occupying force. So obviously sovereignty is limited from the beginning, but they also required that the government get one of the 7 seats, that there are other political parties that have alliances with gangs gets parts of the 7 seats. And so what it looks like going forward is that you're going to have 7 people named to this transition. They're going to be, across the ideological spectrum. They're going to be a very broad range of their commitment to democracy and their ability to win fair elections. And that is somehow going to lead towards elections. I mean, I think there is, I don't want to be too pessimistic. I think there is an opportunity, although limited, for some improvement in democracy, but it's going to be sharply limited again because of the rules that have been set up.
Going forward, what should we look for in terms of possible indicators as to which way this is going to go?
I think it depends on, whether the international mission is a big deal. I mean, as long as that's deployed, that is a deep limitation of Haitian sovereignty and democracy. If the best case scenario on that would be that you allow some kind of legitimate Haitian government to decide how the international community can help. There are good arguments, and Haitians are making it, that they need international forces, but everybody in civil society says we don't need an occupying force that was really designed to prop up this hated government. So how the international community has a chance to do better by Haiti by allowing Haitians to make the call as to how the international community can help, whether troops are useful or not, and what kind of troops and what they should do. The second is just the mechanics of the election. If it moves forward, if there's basic freedom in the sense that all candidates are allowed to participate. Again, there's a long history of U.S.-supported governments having elections that the U.S. calls good, but they eliminate their opponents through pretexts in the candidate registration process. So we need to make sure that all candidates are allowed to run. And then on election day itself, you'd actually need to have a fair election, it's not characterized by the fraud that has actually characterized every single election run under the PHTK party in the last 10 years.
Lastly, what's a good book for our audience to read if they want to get a primer on Haitian history and the U.S. obviously a big part of that?
Yeah, there's lots of good ones. A fantastic one just came out. It's by Jake Johnston. It's called Aid State. That's up to date and a good encapsulation of the whole picture.
All right, great. We'll put a link to that and to some of the pieces also I think that you've written recently for, I mean, just this past week. I had a sense from
responsible statecraft.
Yes, we have those, and just like a week ago, it felt like you had a sense that this was coming, and it was. We will put a link to that as well. Brian, thanks so much for coming on. We will be in touch as things develop there in Haiti.
Okay, I'll look forward to talking to you again, and thanks again for having me, Sam.